everywhere. This is not about a battle. To me, it's not about a battle. It's a contribution of our Vietnamese American. We work hard, we assimilate, and we contribute. And look at all the hard work these good people put into it. I totally understand the opposition. I get it. I understand. But it's just, maybe another 3 decades before the Vietnamese American get the recognition. I look at the Mendes Park. It's a small right corner. Is that a true representation of what they have done for civil rights movement? I don't think so. I think it should be bigger. So the question to you and to this council and the member of the public is how many more decades that we have to endure so that we can get accepted? Yeah, you did it, Vietnamese American. In 47 years, maybe another 3 decades. I don't know. I think we should get it done tonight. Yes, no, maybe. Build it or bury it. Do it tonight.
Yep.
Yes.
Councilmember Dillard, the reason I second it is because I agree with the Councilmember Ho as far as from me is the uncertainty of our financial situation in our city. There's no guarantee that this community, this city is going to survive. There's no guarantee that the residents are going to vote in favor of the measure. So the uncertainty, I don't see myself putting our residents, our very thin financial situation even thinner. It's going to put us over the cliff. And it doesn't seem that this council has changed in the views as far as how they feel about this particular item. I respect the views of all of my colleagues up here in the dais. This has been going on for a while. We've all expressed our views, and I respect that. So I don't see this changing, and I don't want to expend any more funds on this because we can't afford it right now. But I kind of have to say this. I kind of take what you said about that this community has not recognized the Vietnamese American in our city. We up here, 4 of us up here are an example of how this community has accepted the Vietnamese community, because I know a lot of non-Vietnamese residents in this city have voted, including myself, have voted for members that are sitting up here right now. So I'm pretty sure a lot of non-Vietnamese Americans have voted for us, all of us up here. And I think this community has very well accepted Vietnamese Americans in our city. So I have a kind of an issue with that. I don't think that's true. All around us, our community shops, Vietnamese owned businesses, myself, we eat at Vietnamese American restaurants. We love the traditions. We visit your Saigon stores, participate in TED Festival. So I have an issue with that. And I agree with you that little sliver of park, that the Mendes park, it was dedicated to the Mendes family. There's no park in our city big enough to really recognize what that Mendes family did for not just our city, but the whole country. There's no park big enough to really honor them. I wish we had a bigger, something grander, but what we're doing right now is something that's really proud of our, I'm really proud of our community for supporting it. I'm really proud of our city staff, which they've been doing, working really hard on making it grander than when it first started. It started off just as such a small idea, and now it's turned into something much larger. It's going to have a big educational, for all our different school districts, different children to learn about, and then there's room. And I agree with you there, but right now the issue in front of us is that we can't afford it. You can't afford to spend any more money on this. And I don't see this council decision changing from the past. So I'm for tabling it. We'll see what happens after with where our city stands financially a few months from now. And then we'll deal with it then. But right now, I think it's the right decision to table it.
But, I appreciate, Vice Mayor's, comments. I don't think the city should bearing the cost to maintain the monument. And the construction cost is gonna be, paid by the community, by the member of the Quyê Tree Monument committees. And they make the commitment to raise fund. And some of the members spoke earlier, they say, we need to know, the fate of this monument so that we can go out there and with confidence, asking the community, the Vietnamese community across the nation to come and support the raise fund, several $100,000. They're very confident.
Right.
There's a lot of wealthy donors willing to come up the money. And there's so much uncertainty for like almost a year. And that's have to stop. All these members of the community they live, they sleep, they eat, they breathe with the dream of building their monument. I have to face the election just like anybody else, but you know what? I accept that. My decision. I have to represent two sides of the city. Okay, I have to protect the interests of both sides, and I accept the consequences because you know what? It's the right thing to do. I don't do it. Okay, I do it with good intention. I never do it with political interest, and that's my philosophy. It's the way I operate with diocese for almost 4 years. I accept the consequences. I do it with good intention. And we do this right now, we defer to November. It's a chicken way to do it. We run away from our responsibility to make a decision because these people are waiting with hope and dream just to do something, but they can't.
Yes.
So I would, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but I would like to substitute motion and move forward and have the, number one, the Quyê Tree Monument Committee gonna incur all the costs of personal maintenance. So the excuse of this council is like, the city's not gonna pay, we're gonna pay for the construction costs as well as maintenance will be taken out of the equation. And number two, then I'm gonna propose a location. If you, yes, no, maybe, none of the above, cast your vote. And so that member of the public can figure out what you're gonna do for the next few months. They're gonna raise fund, or they're gonna just like cut their losses and go home. There's so much uncertainty for so long. It divides the city. Okay, I remember, Councilman Tress, he make a speech when we dedicated the Mandates Park. He was hoping that park would bring everybody together. It take 75 years for the Mandates family to get recognized. And we've been here for 47 years. How many more decades do we need to do this? So, did I make the correct motion?
So which park do you want location, did you want to place it in? I don't think you clarified that.
Any suggestion?
If you want to ask Adolfo to see if, I know that the last time you were looking into some locations, then you could propose.
Staff did put together a site assessment. We have that available if the council wants to see it. It was mentioned earlier during our communication, I did receive phone calls as well from the public stating that there was a sense of cultural insensitivity about placing this monument at Westminster Memorial Park. We are not experts in cultural sensitivity at the city, nor were we able to research these comments, but these were very well-respected individuals from within the Vietnamese community that stated that this type of a monument really had no place at a cemetery because it's a victory monument. Again, these are just paraphrasing some of the statements that we did receive. If council's asking us to show a slideshow showing the locations that we prepared, we're prepared to do that. Jake did a great job pulling that together. And you've seen that before, I think in late July.
And I think we all have seen it, but right now I'm just gonna make a decision, make a recommendation, name a location, and if we need to have public hearings just to get the feedback from the community. Since no one's want to step up and make a recommendation, so I have no choice but have to step up and make a recommendation. Westminster Park.
But I do think Adolfo had mentioned that he's got a location in Westminster Park that we haven't heard about. So for us to move forward, we'd like to hear.
I thought I saw the report on Westminster Park.
We have an illustration of the park. We have share that with the council.
So Westminster Park at some point was a location that had been mentioned, and so this is something that, in looking at a potential location within Westminster Park, this is a little bit more detailed as to where that monument could essentially be. So, if you look at the slide, I'll blow it up. There's a particular location, that's along Magnolia side. I will say these are, you see where that square looking box, that's where one of them would be. So it is closer to Magnolia Street. Other location is over by the handball court and the restrooms.
Is there a particular location that we would be discussing, choosing?
So the map right in front of you is the overall of the Westminster Park, and I also labeled the two locations with the yellow circle. The proposed location number 1, which is right in front of you right now. It's just pretty much next to Magnolia Street.
There's no baseball field in that particular area.
So as you can see, it's beyond what we would refer to as the home run fence. So that fence there that you see, that's slight light line that goes from bottom left to top.
Which area would be least likely to be used or?
So there's been several locations that we've been talking about. We visited the park and we've heard from different members of the public, as well as from the committee about different locations at the park. There's probably been 5 locations that have been proposed. The locations that are being presented before you tonight are locations where we have confirmed with our Parks and Recreation folks, with Vanessa, that these are areas that are not programmed for activities. Doesn't mean people don't use them, but they're just not programmed for activities. One of them was early on was proposed to be like in the field of play. That didn't work. Another one was close to exercise equipment. There was issues and concerns with that. So this location is away from the recreational activities that are programmed, which is the Challenger League that's been there for decades now. And then the other slide, location 2, identifies another location where it also doesn't interfere with programmed activities that have taken place historically at the site. And in this particular case, the monument is oriented with the facing the open grass field. That would be to the east.
Am I mistaken if I thought we have a location somewhere near Hazard?
Hazard?
Is that correct? Am I losing it?
That was the original.
No, you're not losing it. At some point in earlier discussions, there was a location that it was along Hazard. in which, you know, that location was looked at.
And what was the, problem that we might face?
So what happens during the Challenger activities, and I think I have a little bit more insight on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's that, as games are happening, there's other games that are, other folks that are arriving to prepare for the next game. That area that was identified that you just mentioned is an area where people are known to congregate, people are known to gather and get ready for the next game. So although it's not in the field of play, it is identified as an area that is often used by folks that are programmed to be at that park and have been programmed to be at that park for many years.
They're like warming up, they're hanging out, they're basically just waiting for the next group to leave. So there's a lot more consistent activity in that particular area on House Week. So we would ultimately be impeding in their area.
We would be changing the behavior that's been in place for many years.
So city staff did some follow-up and decided that it's not
Yes, we've seen the
suitable
patterns.
location.
Yes,
I think you're right, you're absolutely right.
and again, with the new playground and exercise equipment, there was a lot of flow in that area of activity.
So I believe an underutilized area would be number one, which is number one on Magnolia.
It would definitely be preferable.
Yeah,
It's the more viable solution of that area. I will say that there is currently a very low height fence.
That fence is about 3 feet high. It would behoove us to get a taller fence in case balls are flying over that fence.
How far is that from the nearest residence?
It's also something
To the north of that?
we can probably eyeball it.
I would say probably about 100, 150 feet to the nearest wall.
30 yards, 30, 40 yards. I think I agree with the staff recommendation. I think that would be a suitable location right now to present to the city council to make a decision. So I would like to, my substitute motion reflects that, city attorney.
Before we go any further, Chief, remind me, or maybe Adolfo, what was the situation with the parking on this particular park? Is there enough parking?
Yeah, so the situation with the parking is, it probably won't be enough for an event, such as this one, but we were talking about possible having some kind of agreement with the nearby facilities like the church or the school that people can use there during the event.
And remind me again, to the north of that park, is there not a cutout in the block wall that leads into the neighborhood to the north?
Yeah, I think there's to the east of that.
Towards the back.
There's a
Back, there's
okay,
a hallway.
So if there's not enough parking in the parking lot, isn't it safe to assume that folks wanted to attend an event, they're gonna find other locations to park and walk over and walk into and park in that neighborhood and walk in?
Yes.
Am I safe to assume that would happen?
That is a safe assumption. We don't know much about the type of activities that are programmed for this monument, but we would assume it would happen, and when that happens, people find places to park in the nearest available spaces.
So I'm assuming that some of the activities are gonna be similar to what happens at Freedom Park.
That's really gonna
year, would be once a year.
So during the assessment, in your assessment, were the residents contacted? Are the residents aware of this potential monument being there in that location,
So as far as when you say residents, you're speaking.
Property owners.
So plural, in plural, we have not met with groups that represent the community to discuss these possible locations. We have, I personally have met with the resident that is very familiar with the park. So I understand the needs of the community, but again, we rely a lot on what Vanessa brings to us because she has been programming parks in our city for close to 20 years now. But we have not met with a group of community members That's
Actually,
I was, I'm just trying to think of, so if these homeowners that, you know, they're gonna be deeply impacted permanently in their homes, you think they can just pick up their house and move it somewhere else? I don't think so. So I think if we're gonna make a life-changing decision on these residents, do you not think that we should speak to them?
Yeah, again, Vice Mayor Manzo, I just want to remind you that my recommendation is a location, and then we will go forward with a public hearing. And, you know, to me, I don't know how much impact it's gonna be when you have 2 baseball field with ton of players play balls at the park like almost every weekend, so I don't know how much impact a handful of member of the community is gonna stop by, just visit, and just take a photo at the monument. So I totally understand your concern, and you're right, we need to have a public hearing so that at least the residents in the surrounding area understand and, you know, possibly can have an opportunity to voice their concern. So I'm not saying that we're gonna shut it down and just here's our decision, we're gonna move it forward. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we need to talk to have the residents have an opportunity to voice their concern.
Yeah, another question, maybe city attorney. Typically, when we have a project coming to a neighborhood near you, when you come in, a new business is gonna open, a new development. And when it comes to the planning commission, there's a process, right? You need to put the notice up at the property, and you have to contact the neighboring residents or business owners within, 500 feet, 1,000 feet? Correct?
Yes, in this case,
This is something
it's
to
more in the
me,
nature of a city installation, like if you were to put a basketball court in or, you know, we don't follow that process for that sort of thing. So I don't believe there's anything in the code for us to follow when it comes to something authorized like this in a city park.
all right. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
All right, so, we appreciate all the members of the council, be here tonight and, share your concerns. One of the things on the members of the council also, giving out some of the ideas about a monument. So I'd like to propose additional idea, probably it's not new, but, I'd like to modify, if I may, to Councilmember Ho motion that, I'm willing that the first meeting in November, the city council will consider the monument at Freedom Park. So from now until the first meeting in November, I recommend the city staff should have a meeting with the committee regarding the site of the monument. I don't have a problem with Freedom Park. However, I think that a lot of members in the community may concerned about the site. So I think Councilmember Ho motion that this city council have to decide first meeting in November. I think that would be a right time. And from now until that meeting, I think our city staff need to sit down with the committee to discuss Freedom Park. But remember, I think the size is kind of really huge. A lot of members from the community, they already raised their concerns. For Westminster Park, I think we have to think like activities every weekend. And the parking in Westminster Park, I don't think, I may be wrong, but I don't think that would be suitable for events if there is a celebration or dedication at Westminster Park. And I don't see that, like we go to park in the neighborhood, that will be another concern. So I willing to consider first meeting in November, the city council will decide location in Freedom Park. But at the meantime, city staff will have the meeting with committee to discuss about the site of the monument. I think that will be really fair, and I think that the committee will have opportunity to discuss that with staff. At the same time, the member from the committee, they may, submit their opinion or raise their concerns. So if Councilmember Hall willing to modify that, because first meeting in November, I think this city council has to decide either up or down.
Oh, before you jump in, we need to, the substitute motion is still on the table, and it needs to have a second about it, for lack of a second.
Just for clarity, last thing I heard on the substitute was that you were going to recommend Westminster Park. It's kind of a tentative recommendation, subject to holding a public hearing at some future date, I guess in November, maybe the first meeting in November. But also that
It wasn't, but,
okay.
yeah, the proposal was propose a location at Westminster Park and talk about it, and then for the Quang Tri Monument Committee to absorb the cost, which technically would not be the committee because that's the city, it would be the nonprofit that is.
Except that I haven't heard a public hearing, that's why I was.
If it needs to be, if there's a member of the public complaining about that location, we certainly can open for a hearing. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so it's to select the park, all the costs to be paid by the committee.
Which really is the nonprofit, not the committee, because the committee is a city.
Yeah, that's it. Do we have a name for the nonprofit?
Do we have a name for the nonprofit? That's fine. Do we have a name for the nonprofit?
The nonprofit,
Hiện tại của chị tên là gì ạ? Cái tổ chức gì lại?
Have a nonprofit.
It's a non-profit.
Nhưng mà cái tên của cái cơ quan mà không chịu lợi đó.
what is the name of the nonprofit that you're using?
You're raising
Raising
funds.
funds.
Raising
Cơ
funds.
quan không chịu lợi thì Federation or coalition of Federation of Former South Vietnamese.
One question, Jake. I'm sorry, I don't know Venice. Okay, so this is a long distance from the base of the baseball diamond to that wall. Is that correct? I think it's 100 yards at least.
So the baseball wall or the home wall?
The home.
The fence?
To the fence.
It's pretty far.
Yeah, can we move a little closer to the abandoned area? I'm sorry, hazard.
You pull up the.
So it's getting.
Arrows out there.
Is it narrow?
So that fence actually gets
Oh,
narrowed
that's a
to the
fence.
sidewalk,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
See the fence, yeah.
Make it reasonable.
I would say the recommendation is part of the cost, and this would be part of improvements to the park as well, but currently that fence is about 3 feet. Over in Huntington Beach, there's actually a park that put up this nice netting, that, it's, it would increase the coverage, for any balls that decide to fly out in that direction. But I would.
Is that something that the nonprofit can help pay for, just for that particular portion?
I think staff, I have a contract with, who do the fencing for the city. They estimate about $50,000 to $60,000 to do a 20-foot high, basically post with a netting. So if any ball is flying out that direction, we would contact that net. And the fence line about 230 feet long.
But to answer your question, that could be negotiated into what the cost would be for the nonprofit as part of the,
But the park Park and Rec has, money earmarked for park improvements, is that correct? Or,
There's nothing specifically earmarked for that. It could be.
it could be, you can allocate funds from whether it's, for park improvements for that, if it's what the council wishes to do.
because that particular area, don't get used a lot, doesn't get used a lot, right? It's not always empty, there's no sidewalk.
That piece outside the field. It's not programmed. I can't say that it's not passively used, people walking their dogs, maybe, playing catch out there. But it's not programmed. It's a passive area where people could exercise, walk their dogs, enjoy a picnic under one of the trees.
Right now, at this point, I don't know if the council is gonna approve
Chứ mà mới ra
it,
ngoài
so
nói chuyện
I'll just, my substitute motion, without a hearing. It's up to the council to whether you're gonna let the motion die and, second.
The motion is to select Westminster Park at this particular location with the nonprofit associated with the QT committee to pay all costs. And no public hearing.
And, annual maintenance.
No public hearing.
Okay.
All right, we have, subject to motion from Councilman on the floor. Any second? I don't hear anything. May I propose another subject to motion?
Well, so you made a recommendation to modify.
But if I'd like to.
So substitute motion fails. Do you want to make an alternate?
Yes. All right, so I make, subject to motion that our city council, we go to decide that the monument, whether or not going to be built at Freedom Park in the first meeting in November. And from now until the first meeting of November, the city staff have to sit down with the committee members to discuss about the site of the monument. And the monument item in the first meeting of November needs to be a public item on the agenda. That is my
So, it would normally, it would be a regular item.
motion. Yes, no, needs to be a public hearing.
We want to make it a public.
Yes, it's a public meeting item, so that's the opportunity for everyone to show up in the meeting, to raise your concerns, either you support or oppose. And I think that is really fair for everyone. I hope that, the monument, had to be, unified. Everyone in the community, it needs to, need to, be a really great symbolism for our city. So that's going to be a public hearing item. Is that fair?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm interested in learning more about this heritage park. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, let's, is there a second, or if not, just like
I don't know,
that?
would you would add that to
So that is my signature motion, so if you don't like it, hey, you don't have to second it.
Is there a second to the substitute motion?
Well, before I say, whether I want to subsecond it or not, I understand that, Councilman Bill said that, we dragged this for so long already and he wants to make a decision tonight. But, it seemed to me that from the consensus of the, council members, they are not ready to make a decision tonight, whether the yes, no, or, like this. I want to remind everyone that we have put a lot, we have invested a lot in the meetings and meetings and meetings and people putting times and, looking into this. We can't just, drop that at one, at any moment. I just want to make sure that, you understand that, I want to reaffirm my commitment that I'm supporting the money. But I will stand by with my decision as before, that this is community practice, and we need to have community input. Okay, now I don't know, I know that there is a concern of financial, but can I ask staff, if you have a chance to look into this, to see what is the cost of doing a community outreach? Do you have any idea of how much this costs?
So I'll talk a little bit about the scope. We did hear the word community outreach mentioned, and so we did, as part of our due diligence, look into, we spoke to a few firms that specialize in outreach. And so myself, as part of my years at the city, I've been a part of many outreach efforts. I've seen it evolve from the 22 freeway project approach, 18 years ago, to what we're doing on the 405. So when speaking to these experts, they have several options, and depending on the option we go with, it can range from anywhere between $28,000 is the lowest quote to 51. It just depends on the targeted outreach efforts. So like today we heard a new park mentioned, right? So as the parks numbers increases and if the direction of the council is to go to each park and have a pop-up event, for example, that scope will increase as well. So there is an approach that we've looked into.
Let me clarify that. Is that for one area or for the whole thing?
The cost there, the cost represents a systematic approach of engaging the entire community. When we spoke to the outreach experts, since the presentation you've seen from Jay focuses on viable parks, one of the approaches was, let's have an outreach event at each of the viable parks and see what kind of input we get. There's also a more citywide effort that they discussed. So at the end of the day, we do have some options, but that is not just for one park, it is for a collective approach.
Okay, because of financial concerns related to this, I do agree with the mayor that we should reconsider this at November, the first meeting of November. At that time, we know that we are in a better situation where we are. And, at that point, we can also still conduct a public hearing and, we decide whether that, Freedom Park is a better place. So I mean, we can still have some time to make a decision on this. I don't think that we are rushing into it today. So with that, I second the motion from the mayor.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and I like to state it clearly. This is not a promise. The first meeting in November, the city council, we will have a public hearing regarding the monument we will build at Freedom Park. So I hope that everybody understand this is not a promise. And this, in the first meeting of November, there will be a public hearing item. That's meaning that item will be open for everyone. Anyone in the community is more than welcome to come up, raise all the concerns you have, and this city council has to decide.
That's an empty promise because it will never be placed in Freedom Park.
All right?
Yes.
So,
Stop fooling people.
Mayor?
So if I could, I see two very similar motions. The original motion, as I recollect it, correct me if I'm wrong, was to basically continue this item until the first meeting in November to discuss the location generally. Where is it gonna go? There was no public hearing mentioned. Okay, Christine, why don't you
Okay.
clarify?
So the first original motion, the original motion rather, is to defer to the first meeting in November, but have staff look into Heritage Park, specifically Heritage Park. This particular motion, which is the new substitute motion, is to have a public hearing in the first meeting of November for Freedom Park, but in the meantime, discuss with the Quang Tri Monument Committee regarding the size of the monument.
Yeah, the only thing I think on the original motion was, I don't think the original motion was so focused, and you can clarify, Councilmember Ho, was focused solely on Heritage Park. I think you were gonna look at it generally, but asking staff to look into Heritage Park is one of the new options. Was that correct?
Already failed.
Excuse me?
In that motion already failed.
I thought we had a second.
No, it's not fair,
It's
yeah,
not fair.
because I make another substitute motion.
Yeah, your original motion was the
Can I
whole.
change my original motion? Could I amend?
You can, if your second agrees with it.
No, but right now.
What's my second?
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
But right now, we have the motion on the floor. It's up to you, yeah.
Oh, well, if I have a second, how come we didn't vote?
No, because Councilman Doe proposed another substitute motion.
Okay, so let me just go back to.
I just want to be clear on the motions, that's all.
Okay, so Councilmember Ho, in her comments, said that she wanted to table this item, bring it back to November, but also wants staff to look at Heritage Park. And so a motion was then made, seconded by Vice Mayor Monzo, to defer to the first meeting in November, but have staff specifically look into Heritage Park, because we hadn't talked about it before. A substitute motion was made by Councilmember Doe to propose location at Westminster Park, but also to have the Quang Tri Monument nonprofit, for clarification, to absorb that cost. That substitute motion then died.
Plus the,
Not a second.
plus the annual mingle.
Yes, so sorry, yeah, the cost of the maintenance was in there. That substitute motion died. And then Mayor Ta had originally asked, while the substitute motion was still on the table, to modify the original motion, in which he didn't need to do that because the substitute motion died. So he made a new substitute motion to have a public hearing in the first meeting in November, but also have the discussion with the Quang Tri Committee regarding the size and consider Freedom Park. So that's what's on the table right now, is that substitute motion. That needs to get voted on. It has a motion and a second, and then we can go back to the original motion, which was made by Councilmember Ho, seconded by Vice Mayor Monson.
All right,
I'm in 100% agreement with that. That's what I got also. I just want to clarify on your motion. You were saying looking into Freedom Park. Are you also, is the agenda item also going to include other parks as an option, or is that really just your focus? That's what I heard in your motion.
are you asking me?
I'm asking you if that is that your.
I mean, I look at all the park, it's not appropriate for the monument. I'm very honest, like the monument for Westminster Park, I don't think that is appropriate.
So your motion is to solely look at Freedom Park.
Correct. However, that needs to be a public hearing item.
Yes.
Member of the public, more than welcome to raise your concerns, any concerns that you have. Yes. That would be a public hearing item.
So to be realistic on a timeline, because I know, time's flying with this thing, right? One of the struggles that staff has had has been to coordinate a meeting with the Quang Tri Committee, because, you've got a lot of players. So I would say that if you want to direct staff to have this discussion about the size, it's gonna require a committee meeting. Can you set a time frame in which staff is to meet with the monument? Because we as staff
Yes,
are going to struggle
yes.
at some point to
I
get
agree.
this meeting put together.
Right, so, I would like to add staff, I give staff 30 days. Is that enough? 30 days to sit down with the monument committee to discuss about the site of the monument.
Does the committee, we have members of the committee here, do you understand that we need to meet
I think 30 days is really fair, the day city staff and community member. Within 30 days.
And the second agrees with that change, addition?
Councilman Wing, okay, so we have received the motion and second, I received the motion on the floor. I think I make it clear. All right,
Substitute motion.
call for the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. And that will end, Councilmember Dill,
I would, vote no, because we promised the community we're not gonna do it on Freedom Park, so I vote no, not Freedom Park.
Councilmember Ho,
No,
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Monzo,
No,
Mayor Tom.
Yes,
Motion carries.
all right, so we go back to original motion.
yes.
Okay,
Okay, I would like to amend my motion, my original motion, to read that I would like to propose, either Freedom Park or Heritage Park, being that we're talking about not losing or interfering with recreation. And, since I agree with, Mayor Treetop about other parks not being, a good fit. So I would like this to be brought back. First meeting in November, so I agree with that. So it would be either Freedom Park or Heritage Park. Okay, so that's plenty of time for staff to do their homework on Heritage Park. And I would like,
Is that a public hearing?
no, I don't want a public hearing. Then the other is that, that the size of the monument, I would like the committee, QT committee members to sit down by the end of September. So that's plenty of time. So that's more than 2 weeks to sit down by September 30th. Those are two parks I think are viable options, because we are looking at not interfering with any recreation.
Does the second agree to those changes?
May I ask a question?
well,
Go ahead. Could we
Yes,
pull
that's all I have.
up the satellite photo of Heritage Park, because that parking no longer there, it's a parking lot now.
I have a question for.
You know, I don't know how do we come up with Heritage Park? It's a parking lot for that, Chamber of Commerce building.
So before.
But where's the park?
Wait, hold on. So before we get to that question, does the second?
Well, the question, I just had a,
So we got a bill right
I have
now.
a question before I agree to it, is that timeline enough time for staff to meet with the committee in September, I think you said?
I believe they already, if I seem to remember, staff mentioned that committee member already sat down with you or submitted to you a smaller version. And I think all you need to do is confirm that that is the smaller version, and that's it.
Is that enough time?
So there's been no formal submittal that the council's been aware of regarding a smaller scale. This is the first time we're hearing about Heritage Park. You know, I'm eyeballing it. The current size of the monument's not gonna fit in the area where it could potentially go, which would be on the far west end of the park. Vanessa reminded me that there is a wishing well. I don't really know what that means or what it is. There's something there. I know what it is, I just don't know the history behind this particular one. So the amount of room that we have is going to dictate the potential reduction. The submittal that they presented to Jay, first of all, was not a formal submittal. And secondly, it very likely won't fit. So we're gonna need to look at this area and we're gonna need to adjust it
Do you need more
according to
time?
scale.
You need more time?
Yes.
Okay, so
I think we
within
should-
30 days? Okay, I'm fine with that. I just wanna make sure you guys have plenty of time. So 30 days, that's giving them a lot of time, and I'm just afraid that they might not give you, well, I think you should contact them ASAP and schedule it.
Let me explain something, we're gonna put on heritage, there's no park there, it's all paved and parking spaces.
Again, we haven't really gone out to assess it. Looking at it and hearing about it, we've been talking in the sidebar here. The only area that it can potentially go is on the far west side of the park. And there is currently
3 feet of
what was that?
grass or something, like
Say that
3 feet.
again?
Like 3 feet of grass in that area.
It's no longer referred to as Heritage Park, the mapping hasn't been up to date, I know, it's,
So there's 3 parking stalls. Councilmember. There's three parking stalls on the far west end of the park. Each parking stall is about 19 feet. So the depth would be about 19 feet, right? And then the length of it, eyeballing it, right? First time I see the park, it's about 70 feet. It's pretty accurate. Roughly at 70 feet. So we have 70 by 20 roughly. The current,
It back into an apartment building.
that is a concern. The height of the monument that close to a home is something we're gonna be looking at.
May I ask some additional information on this, because I was involved with the building of this Chamber of Commerce. Part of the project that we had to do the water quality management plans, that 3 parking spot in this area here is required for that particular project. That means all the runoff water had to go into those areas and then percolate through the pervious concrete. So by putting something on, we kind of violated, the state law already. In addition, the building itself, because it have the office building as well as a conference room, it will require a certain number of parking spaces. So by removing some, again, we might violate the requirements that we have.
You're saying that this is not viable.
Well, in all fairness, it's being presented to us tonight for the
Yes,
first
first thing I'm
time.
hearing of it too.
These are questions we need to look at.
We're not making a decision today. I just want to make sure that we don't, in the interest of not taking any more park space and trying to, that's trying to accommodate everybody's, needs and point of view, take everybody's point of view into consideration. That's why I'm thinking Freedom Park or Heritage Park, and you could come back, and let's choose one or the other. But we can't drag this on.
It's a bit paradoxical, but yes, staff can look into which is gonna come first, the chicken or the egg, right? Because you look at the space, if it's too big, but that's why, again, we can come back to that.
Thank you.
Right, so we have the motion and the second on the floor.
Do we have a second on that? Yes, we modified it.
It's
Basically,
basically the same motion as mayor's, just picking it through.
but add the,
Yes.
that's not a public hearing item.
So let's make it a public hearing.
So council, let me ask you.
Councilmember Wade?
Okay. Well, let's just make it a public hearing. I think the mayor is on to something as far as hearing from everybody, and if it's gonna get the council all on board, then we need to agree to something, so.
I like to, Heritage Park at, Cameron, building. I don't see anyone in the city right now that realize that it's a park.
I didn't realize it was.
Yes, I mean like long time ago, before the building was built, yeah, that may be a park, but I don't see that the park right now. And you need to look at the parking. I don't see.
Well, I know, that's why we'll bring that back in November,
All right,
so,
that's one way. Oh,
So we need to determine, do we have a second on,
yes, but because we would like to speak before we.
but we should probably make sure there's a second person then speak.
Well, yes, there was, but,
Will you second the motion?
but I wanted Councilmember Ho to add to that, the public hearing. And then if we do that, then I'll second it.
yes, I agree.
We're basically.
Do we have a
I agree.
motion?
So one more time, we are still on the original motion, which she has now amended to say, to propose Freedom Park or Heritage Park. It'll be a public hearing, meet with the committee within 30 days, talk about the size, bring it back first week in November. And the second of that original motion has said okay.
Okay, I was about to say that, first of all, the motion that, well, I understand the concern from the mayor that the Heritage Park, but I understand staff said that they haven't looked into that, so let's stop looking into that. So I kind of agree to the motion, the motion from, the original motion from Councilmember Hall. But I'd like to clarify with the legal counsel first, that when she make a modifying to the original, then do I allow to make a substitute motion after that?
And yes, once she's modified her motion, then you could make a substitute motion.
That's what I believe.
Because she's modified it.
That's right. So, but I don't need to do it right now. The only thing that I want to make it different is because I want to make sure that it is public hearing. And my Vice Mayor Menzo already asked Councilmember Hall to modify that, and she modified that, so that's it. I don't need to do any more substitute motion.
Right, so the first item come back, first meeting in November, am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Right, we have the motion and second on the floor.
There's a motion was made, the amended motion was made by Councilmember Hall, and second by Vice Mayor Manzo. Councilmember Dove?
I heard Freedom Park, possibility can be built there. I did not agree with that. That's why we voted to go forward and have it placed in the public park. I have not changed my position. Heritage Park is I don't know. Did we depark the parkland before we build the building? Don't answer the question. Do not answer the questions. I think we worked with council with jerking the choke chain on the community. Just drag them along for so long, and I don't think it's ethical. I don't think that we have the courage to say, no, hey, I want to spread this project, or I don't want to build, If that's what the council wanted, just say it straightforward. Stop, give the community, handing the carrot in front of the community. They've been working so hard, so long. Look at it, it's showing up every council meeting. It's just, you don't want it, just say so. Say, we're not supporting it. And just script it tonight. Or make a decision. So my vote is, no, I do not want to move this, to defer the decision in the first meeting in November. No.
Councilmember Hall?
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Manzo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes,
Motion carried. 4 yeses and 1 no.
all right. Next item, continue for last meeting of 10/20/22, expiration stating what? With information according to be monument.
Thì Ủy ban Trung ương Hội đề nghị là tháng 11 này họ sẽ họp để bàn về quyết định và họ bà cho cái nhân viên thành phố 30 ngày họp lại với Ủy ban Trung ương để điều chỉnh lại cái kích thước.
With respect to item 5.2, we received a letter from the attorney of the monument, the QT monument, that is now happily installed in San Jose, and that they have no interest in moving into Westminster. So there's no value for more discussion. So I propose that we take no action on this item and move on.
So if we don't take an action, so we don't have to vote, am I correct?
No need to vote.
No withdrawal.
All right,
I'd like to withdraw item 5.2.
Next item, 641, continue from August 10, 2022 meeting, ordinance revising chapter 3, 44,
Đều phải đo.
Safety system, Westminster Municipal Code.
Dạ vâng.
Council, we need a staff report or may I have a motion or any concerns and questions about this item?
I'd like to have a statement, please.
All right, staff report. All right. Please.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. So this item was reviewed by the council on June 9th of 2021. And at that time, council took action to reduce the city manager's limit to for purchase orders from 175,000 to 50,000. But since that time, costs have gone up for routine items and inflation, and some vendors have expressed reluctance to commit to pricing based on the fluctuating costs. So we once again surveyed surrounding cities, and those are included in the staff report, but Huntington Beach is 100,000, Costa Mesa is 100,000, and Anaheim is 200,000. So this item would raise the city manager's purchase order or purchasing limit from 50,000 to 100,000. In addition, there was a need to clarify language in the code or the purchasing ordinance for multiple, let's say the California Multiple Award Schedule CMAS, and include other similar programs such as Sourcewell to be authorized for purchases procured pursuant to competitively bid contracts. And finally, if the limit was raised to 100,000, it would then raise the emergency purchasing provisions to 200,000, and it would be needed to be reported back at the next council meeting. So anything over 100,000 would come back to council at the next meeting.
And let me just make one point of clarification, and that is that this concerns services, supplies, and equipment. It does not concern public works projects. Public works projects are governed by the Informal Public Cost and Accounting Act, which the city's adopted, which would allow the city manager to approve informally bid projects up to 200,000. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Dạ vâng, coi như là đã bổ sung phiếu xong cái phần xây dựng tựa đề của anh chị. Bây giờ họ sẽ nói qua những cái mục khác người ta phải xin chữ viết chương trình nơi đây. Các bạn nào mà muốn theo dõi thì có thể vào cái YouTube của thành phố Westminster. Dạ vâng, cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những chương trình tới.
We've had some delays being able to purchase things because the 50,000 is, excuse me, is low for some of our normal day-to-day operations.